Dr. Carol Francis. I'm a clinical psychologist, a clinical hypnotherapist, a marriage, family, child therapist, and I've been helping people for 36 years in this profession. I love my work with people, and the question that I often get from individuals is, how does psychotherapy help? There are so many other interventions you can use. You can go to the psychopharmacological route and take medication. You can go do exercise and eat well, sleep well, and take your vitamins and minerals and herbs, and those things can be helpful as well. You can find good and healthy relationships, and that's fundamental to feeling good as well. Or find a career where you feel like you're productive, creative, on top of your game, successful. And that's a type of therapy too. So we could go on. There's a lot of things in life that are very therapeutic. So why psychotherapy? In addition, there's so many different types of psychotherapeutic interventions, it's confusing to consumers. Confusing to psychologists, in fact. In fact, after 36 years of looking at all of these types of psychotherapies that have come into full view and then been discarded as if they're not helpful, I'm a little skeptical about all these brand new therapies that come in because they look like an awful lot like the old therapies that have gone out. It's interesting because we've really been dealing with the field of psychotherapy since, way before Christ, 2,000–3,000 years exactly. They were doing things like this in Egypt and India that were helpful to the human soul and spirit. So psychotherapy has been around in all sorts of shapes and forms, as has been ill health and unhappiness. Psychotherapeutic interventions by way of talking, by way of biofeedback, by way of brain entrainment, by way of reprogramming, by way of hypnotic suggestions, and there's so many other approaches. We find that these different approaches help an individual rework old traumatic issues which have carved and etched patterns inside the brain and inside response patterns in relationships. We understand that psychotherapy by talking gives a person ability to reflect upon what they're doing and then to be able to change them. It also gives them the ability to not only recognize what's going on, see it from a point of view so they can now do something about it, but also gives them tools. What can they do? And so those types of therapy are like problem-solving oriented therapies. Now, interestingly, even when those type of therapies are about self-reflection, emotional expression, exploration of identity, more psychoanalytic work or Jungian psychology or psychodynamic psychotherapy, the talk therapies, where there's a lot of work with what the individual's dreams are, what their experiences are, who they are, how they define themselves, these also cause a great deal of change. One reason, because an individual can experience himself as if they're observing themselves, as if they're looking as clearly and as closely as they can in the witness or the presence of another individual who's also looking and experiencing it as much as they can within the safety and confines and privacy of the therapeutic office. And again, this sort of intervention has been around with human nature. Well, as far back as we go into records, we see that there are some individuals in every civilized or organized, even tribal organization, where there's one individual or several individuals who take on this role of being therapist or shaman or the primary person that deals with the emotional well-being or the psychological or mental well-being of the individuals in their particular community. It's nothing new. It's part of what we need as human beings. So when you go to psychotherapy, what's really important is that you know that you're unique. And your uniqueness will make you more available to some interventions at a certain time in your life than other interventions. All the interventions have been proven to be helpful in the most part that psychologists use because, number one, we're obliged to give you the type of treatments that have been researched and have been proven to have definite efficacy for the well-being of you. It's really not okay for any psychotherapist to practice an intervention that has no efficacy at all. For one thing, it's a waste of your money. Another thing, it's not ethical. And thirdly, time is of the essence. You want to move on with your life. But an ethical therapist who's also trained can know that all these different types of therapies would probably help you. But some interventions are going to be more moving to you, capture your attention, work with your personality or your frame of reference or your style of living in the world differently than other types of psychotherapy. So that it's possible We don't want to hit the same nail with the same hammer. If I'm going to do carpentry, I'm going to use little teeny nails, and I'm going to use a carpenter's hammer to get just precision on my upholstery. If I'm going to go build a house, I'm going to use my 16-penny nails and my big, heavy hammer that's going to be carried with gravity. So you want your therapist to have as many hammers as possible, as many nails as possible, because you may be in a different state one time versus another time. I know this may be a little bit confusing, but what's really nice is when you're in the presence of someone where you feel that their skill set is so diverse that they're able to select for you the skills and the treatments and the interventions that in that moment are going to move and mobilize you into being aware of yourself, contemplating your options, transforming experiences, being able to make problems more solved, whatever the process is, it will shift you. Remember, life is about evolving and shifting to be that ever more evolved individual that you have the potential to be. So you want to make sure that therapist has those tools to be able to evolve you as well. It's a little bit like this. Perhaps at one point in your life you can afford a one-bedroom apartment. Another time in your life you can afford a two-bedroom house. Another time in your life you can afford a house with three garage spaces for indoor car parking spaces. Another point in your life, perhaps you own a whole island. So what type of therapist do you want to walk you through all of those progressions? One that understands how to grow you, evolve you, and help you move into your next step. Sometimes it takes you being brave enough to say, move me. And definitely takes your therapist being brave, clear, educated, and proactive enough to be able to work with you in all sorts of different ways. This is Dr. Carol Francis. Please feel free to call me. Contact me. Comments are welcome as well. And make sure you get yourself in a great relationship with an individual that will help you grow. Whether that great relationship is with you, or a therapist, or someone else. You take care.